Okay, we finished another round of 100-point Derby preps, so it's time to revise our Kentucky Derby 150 top 20 list. And we're going to go through them five at a time, and you're going to see this list is going to be pretty different from other ones we've seen. We'll start Seize the Gray. I liked his effort in the Jeff Ruby. And I think this is a horse on the come. Let's see what he does in the Lexington or the Bluegrass, wherever the coach decides to run him. God bless him. I guess he's just trying to max out now that he's got Just Steel in the Derby. Maybe he wants another one. But I think this is a quality horse. And I think that going back on a conventional dirt perhaps will benefit him. And if he can run a good race in the Lexington, maybe he gets into the Derby. Catalytic replaces Just a Touch, and the reason being is that I thought his Florida Derby was a hell of a lot better than Just a Touch's effort in the Gotham. I just thought I was really blown away about how big that horse ran, because if you look at that Florida Derby, take fierceness out of that, Catalytic wins that race by 2 or 3 lengths. For his third career start and first at a route, that was a monster. And it reminded me of what we thought about Mage last year. So I'm not ready to count him out completely from Derby contention. Let's see how he trains, but this horse has some talent, without a doubt, and very intriguing, and certainly going to be a horse you're going to get a price on in the Derby. Stronghold, let's see what he does. And I think he's going to run in the Bluegrass, if I'm not mistaken. He just needs to run against East Coast competition. That's the bottom line to it. But the horse has quality. We'll just have to see when that occurs, how good he really is. Encino, to me, is a intriguing prospect. I really like that Battaglia, and want to see him do it on dirt, of course. But I think this one has some talent. And for Brad Cox, as usual, he's loaded with 3-year-olds, and maybe this one turns into something. No more time we're going to keep on the list. I thought he ran an okay Tampa Derby. It's just really hard. What do you do with a race like that when the pace is so glacially slow for the majority of the race? Certainly he had plenty in the tank late, couldn't hold off domestic product, but he still ran a quality race, and he certainly showed, I thought, the way he was able to kick it into high gear once they all decided to start running, that he certainly has quality. I just have a feeling he's a cut below the better 3-year-olds in this race, and he may have reached his zenith. I don't know if he's got another move in him, but he is by not this time, so we'll see. Endlessly, I love the fact that Mike McCarthy and the owners for Endlessly don't have Derby fever. He's on this list as a tribute to just how good this horse is. I mean, that Jeff Ruby was really something special, and he's a great horse. And, who knows? Maybe they're going to get Derby fever and throw him in there. I don't know how good his prospects are on dirt, but he's a talented horse. I like him. Mystic Dan surprised me in the Arkansas Derby. Ran better than I thought. I thought that, it was a suck-up third. He had no chance of winning the race, but he didn't embarrass himself either. I do think it's confirmed that Southwest Stakes was mud assisted to run that big, and I think I don't consider him to be a primary Derby contender, and I think that was validated by the Arkansas Derby. I think he's just a cut below, but he'll be in the race. But he'll be a toss for me more than likely, especially since he's by Golden Sense. Timberlake, big-time disappointment in the Arkansas Derby. And I thought that was more about he just couldn't handle a better horse. And he just didn't have an answer. They didn't need the race. That's true. I don't think that had anything to do with fitness. I think that just was a horse who just he was a little too keen early. That's true, and we've seen that with Timberlake. And he did have a little rust in the Rebel Stakes. I don't know that we saw a lot of it in the Arkansas Derby. I thought he ran fine. He just wasn't good enough, and that's what it came down to. So I mentioned in my post on the Arkansas Derby, I heard somebody Uh, call Timberlake verifying too, and that very well may be the case. But he's still, he has quality. There's no doubt about that. But you just can't like him after that Arkansas Derby. Track Phantom, he's going to do what he does. He's going to try to get on the lead and wire the field. I think he's a one-paced horse. I don't think he has a lot of kick. And the Louisiana Derby, I don't know that it exposed anything we hadn't seen already. It's just the competition was a little better, and he wasn't able to settle the way he has before. But there's not a lot of early pace in this Derby, so he is a bit of a wild card. Liberal Arts, he had all kinds of traffic trouble. That was not his fault. That was his jockey's fault. Just gave him a shit ride, pardon my language. I think this horse showed enough to me that he was ready to take another move forward. And I think if they can throw him in the Lexington, perhaps, we may see that fully on display. I think this horse has quality, and I really hope he gets another bite at the apple because I'd like to see him in the Derby. Deterministic, we want to see him do it around 2 turns. We want to see him do it in the wood. What was he going to do? There was a very impressive Gotham coming off the bench, no doubt about it. And this horse had displayed some talent at Saratoga. So let's see if he can take another move forward. But I think he's a very interesting prospect for this year's Derby. Domestic Product gets up in the list because we had to drop some others down. The Tampa Derby, again, a hard race to figure out what to do with anybody from it, but this horse has shown steady progression, and I do like the fact that he was a little closer to the pace, albeit it was slow, and he did display a good kick in the stretch. Again, hard to know what you've got with him, but I do think this is a horse on the come, and he looks to be getting better, so that's what you want to see going into the Derby. So let's see how he trains. Just Steel surprised me in the Arkansas Derby. The coach pulled the wool over my eyes, as he can do. He ran huge. It was a very good second. I thought he was no match for Muth. This horse has talent. I've liked what I've seen a lot from Just Steel. I like the way he's learning. The coach has been training this horse to manage his speed, and he really seems to have taken to it. There's a lot to like about this horse. My problems with him are he's by Justify, so 1 1/8 might be it. And secondly, he just doesn't seem fast enough. But that said, he is a horse who has the ability to get into the exotics in the Derby at a nice price. And of this group of 3-year-olds, I think he's one of the better ones. So Just Steel moves up to number 8. Dornoch, that Fountain of Youth, you just saw what Fierceness did to a lot of the contenders from that Fountain of Youth. And Dornoch kind of just barely beat that group. So Dornoch, to me, again, I'll say, I'm going to keep saying it just so people don't lose sight of the fact. Danny Gargan himself, the trainer of Dornoch, said this horse likes to wait for other horses, and that, to me, is doom. And I think that's why they always put him on the lead, because that way he can stay out of trouble and he won't have to look other horses in the eye. He certainly has quality. He's Mage's brother. There's no doubt about that. But I do wonder about between the ears a little bit. He's still a little green, and I just didn't like that Fountain of Youth. So he's got to show something to me in the Bluegrass to get excited about him again. Tuscan Gold, I really like that Louisiana Derby. I thought he made monster leaps in a very short amount of time. He broke better. He stayed up near closer to the pace. He closed well, and now with the third start or the next start, he has a chance to take another step forward. So Tuscan Gold, to me, is extremely intriguing. Chad Brown's just loaded. So we come to our top 5, and this is going to raise some eyebrows, I'm sure. But we'll start at the 5-hole. Honor Marie, I liked the Louisiana Derby. I thought he was equally as good as Catching Freedom. Catching Freedom got a little bit of a jump on him. Very similar to Mage and Angel of Empire in the Derby last year, I thought. Not taking anything away from Catching Freedom. I thought Anna Marie ran a good race, and third off the layoff. You really have to like this one going into the Derby, and I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Anna Marie. Love the 2-year-old progression. If he keeps doing it at 3, this is a horse to watch out for. Catching Freedom appears to have solved the greenness issues. He ran a very good race in the Louisiana Derby. There's no doubt about it. Displayed really nice acceleration, and that's what I liked to see more than anything else. Compared to so let's say Sierra Leone, I really like his turn of foot. And that to me is the thing I'm excited about with Catching Freedom. So let's see how he does with trains up to the Derby, but he's certainly one you have to keep in mind. Sierra Leone, I'm not taking anything away from him. He is definitely one of the bona fide top 3-year-olds this year, no question about it. However, I got to see one more race out of him, and the reason being is that the way he runs, you got to wonder about getting a good trip. You got to wonder if he has that little extra something gear-wise to close things out. He's certainly progressing the right way. The Risen Star, he closed into a slow pace, and that's such a really big feather in his cap, without a doubt. So I don't want anybody to think for 1 minute I'm not. I've soured on Sierra Leone. I haven't. I just I do wonder a little bit about the turn of foot, but it also could be that he just moves so fluidly. Others look like they're running faster when in fact they're not. I don't know, but I like Sierra Leone right now. Fierceness is number 2, and only because the good race, bad race pattern. That's it. He ran a spectacular Florida Derby. Let's remember something. That was not a good field. It was not. Okay? It really wasn't. Nobody in that field gave him any bit of competition whatsoever. Secondly, he broke perfectly, brilliantly. Johnny Velasquez did. It was absolutely brilliant. The angle he got, my friend Tim over at Trust the Prophets pointed it out. He diagnosed Fierceness's race perfectly, and it's exactly what happened. Johnny V gave him just the perfect ride. However, the horse ran a hell of a good race aside from that. But let's just remember, we've seen him when he's unencumbered, he can do that. When he has a little adversity, different story. In the Derby, 20 horses. Let's see what his post position is. Let's see what kind of trip he can get. There's a lot of question marks still on Fierceness, and let's not lose sight of that. But this is a highly talented horse in a crop that is looking kind of subpar this year. In particular, the Florida Derby horses just aren't very good. So I can't lose sight of the fact that he was beating up on a mediocre field, but he did it the way a good horse should. So a lot of credit in that regard. So Fierceness number 2. Forever Young is number 1 because we know what he can do, don't we? I mean, the last 3 races, he has been consistent as hell. He seems to love competition. And that UAE Derby, okay, maybe he didn't beat a whole lot. That's true. The competition is always a little suspect at UAE. No doubt about it. I don't want you to think for 1 minute I thought that was a great field. But let's remember this. Those of us who watched Dubai World Cup Day noticed that the early speed dominated at Meydan that day. Okay, and that horse Autobahn, he was 25-1. He got on the lead on the rail and hung in there all the way around. Forever Young closed into a speed favoring track, much like we like about Sierra Leone, except he was closer to the pace, and that's really the thing that I like the most, particularly when you look at this year's Derby field. There isn't a lot of early pace. There's no pace pressures. It's all late runners. Anna Marie, Catching Freedom, Sierra Leone, the list goes on. Encino, Liberal Arts. They're all closers. So horses on the engine or horses up near the lead are going to have a monster tactical advantage. And I really like what I saw from Forever Young. I think he closed against a bias. This horse definitely has talent. Does he have the same type of freakish talent that Fierceness does? No, but he does it every time. Fierceness doesn't. Is he as fast as Sierra Leone or Catching Freedom or Ron Marie? I think he is. I really like this horse. I just really liked what I saw. And if you consider, because we've got question marks for quite a few of the more prominent 3-year-olds in the American crop, this might be the year the Japanese do it. It's entirely possible. And I am much higher on this horse than I was on Derma Sotogake, because we've seen a couple of efforts out of this one, and he knows how to handle adversity, and I think that's a really big feather in his cap. So to me, right now, I like Forever Young an awful lot for this year's Derby. So if we look at our top 20 list, we see there's been... and incidentally, I threw Wine Stewart off, and I'm tired of waiting, and even if he runs in the Bluegrass or wherever they put him in, one Derby prep ain't going to cut it for me. So if he runs and runs a good race in one of the Derby preps that are remaining, terrific. And I really like the horse, but if he hasn't run by now, I don't think we have to worry about him. So we've seen a lot of moves up and down, but I think we're at the point now where we pretty much know where we are with our top 20. I think this is the group, provided somebody doesn't freak out in the Bluegrass or even the Santa Anita Derby, where it's going to be the Bafferts. So the Bob Baffert Invitational. So it's probably nobody from the Santa Anita Derby, except maybe Stronghold, if he runs there, are going to factor. So, if you just look at this group, this is a really weird group. And I don't know what to make of it. I think it's kind of on the subpar side. And if that's the case, particularly when you consider the question marks we have on some of these horses, let's pay attention to the ones that are going to get big prices, because this has the makings to me of a year that just might breed a long shot. We'll see how we go from here, but it's a very, very interesting handicapping challenge this year's Derby, more so than other years.